Greetings, and good evening, good afternoon, and good morning from wherever you're joining us. This is your show. Yes, thank you for joining us. Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning from wherever you're joining us for this maiden episode of Being a Man, the adventure from boyhood to manhood, live on Instagram. Uh, the adventure from boyhood to manhood is a groundbreaking conversation in at exploring a man's journey from boyhood to manhood. I am going to be your regular host on this conversation, and I am Ola Akinwe. I am the humanitarian guru, also a literacy activist. I am the founder of Boys Mentoring Advocacy Network, BMAN, a non-profit organization registered and incorporated in the USA and also here in Nigeria. I want to first and foremost thank you for joining us tonight, and we will be exploring the adventure of Rose Fox, all the way from Sedona, Arizona, in the United States. I happen to have met him in person, and he has served in great capacity for such a man that I want to bring his experience from childhood to manhood. And I can promise you, this is going to be an exciting conversation today. You will understand that when boys don't learn, men won't know. We have a situation in our hands right now where you have boys growing up without positive developmental role models. They are confused about how to become a man or becoming. Is a big global crisis when it comes to the boy crisis. And why? Is because great men, noble men, we are not coming out enough to become a voice to these boys or show them that exemplary way to construct the kind of man they should be. And this is worrisome for all of us, and it should not continue. So this conversation is going to help in ensuring that boys have men that they can identify with their true life experience from boyhood to manhood. A lot of men refuse to be men, they remain boys. It's also a challenge. We want men to grow up to become noble men, great men, community leaders, great husbands, people that will be inspired. And this is going to allow us the opportunity to bring as many guests on this show, and you and I will be happy that we have great men out there who are supporting in the developmental stages of our young men and young boys. So thank you. Today I bring to you once again my guest, Rose Fox, or Rose Fox. He's a music director, a conductor, and a Shen therapist and instructor. He is the director of the International Broadcast Hollywood Bowl Easter Sunrise Service since 1983 to 2006. He's also the founder of Performing Art for International Relief, also a conductor conductor of the Bel Canto Symphony and Master Symphony in Los Angeles. He's the founder of Child Wellness Center in Sedona, Arizona. I want to welcome you, Ross. Welcome to the show tonight. And
thank you.
It's a great time to have the opportunity to actually explore your boyhood adventure to manhood. So once again, we say welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here. This is my first Instagram live chat, so I don't know if are we both seen? Do people see both of us? I don't know.
Yeah. Everyone is seeing us now. I guess you can see me as well.
All right. Well, feel free to ask any questions you can. I can basically give you a little bit of a start if you want, like where I'm from and how that all happened.
Yes, okay. I'm going to ask that, Ross.
Okay.
Yeah, so our audience will be delighted to know about you. Tell about yourself as a young boy.
All right. Well, I expect we're going to learn a whole lot from your questions, but let me just start with the basics. And that is, I was born many years ago. I'm 76. So
wow.
I was born in 1946, just after World War II, in San Francisco, California, here in the United States. I'm the youngest of two boys. My older brother was born 3.5 years earlier.
Okay.
And my parents were part of, well, they grew up during the Great Depression here, which was worldwide, I'm sure. But during that time, nobody had anything. It was difficult to make funds, to make a living, to have enough food, to know what to do with, because there were no jobs available. And my dad was fortunate. He did learn a trade, had a job, and we'll talk about that later. But I grew up in an atmosphere of, you gotta save. You can't expect a whole lot in this life. Expect disappointment. You hear what I'm saying? It was all very controlled. Yeah. But that's basically it. I was born in San Francisco and raised all over the country. You can ask me anything you want about where and when, if it's important. But that's who I am. And I live here in Sedona, Arizona. I was married for 51 years. My wife was an operatic soprano.
We're going to come to that, Ross. We're going to come to that aspect of your life so that our audience will really feel. You know, while we try to get to know your experience growing up, I understand that it wasn't like the usual experience you had expected or anticipated. But in the midst of that, you would want to help us describe your father or the father figure in your life in your growing up years.
That's easy. Number one, my dad was loving. He stayed with the family, but he was married to his work. Wow. So that he worked for Nabisco Company, National Biscuit Company, the people that make crackers and cookies. Most of you are familiar with that company. And he was on the ladder to learning how to be a general manager. And because of that, he had to take nighttime shifts. So many times I would be coming home from school, let's say, as a young boy. Shh, be quiet, Dad's asleep. And then by the time I would fall asleep, he would leave for work. And so for a long time, I knew Dad was there, but we didn't have a whole lot except on weekends. And then I would get to find out who my dad really was as a father. And so that was my dad. And I would say this, because of the Depression and because of his desire to be successful at work, he was a little bit emotionally unavailable to me and to
Really?
my brother. Um,
And how does that affect your bonding with him?
well, he's passed away now, but
Yeah.
I I always respected him, um, but I didn't know much about him. That's this is a problem. You know, all boys are looking for something to emulate. They're looking for a role
Absolutely.
model.
Yeah.
And my dad was a role model for make sure your family has food on the table. Make sure that the basics are met. And but was there a connection, a heart to heart? Not really. It was kind of cold. Um, he did the best he could. And I know he was active in church and all of this sort of thing. But when it came to his own family, he didn't know how to express those things. So to me, this was important. I didn't understand it as a kid. But now I think I honestly believe that it's important for us to make peace with our fathers, no matter what our experience was. So during his later years, after he retired, that's when we finally got to know each other. So
Okay.
I was already in my 50s. Well, you know, that was
Wow.
25 years ago, but I was
Wow.
already in my 50s when I finally met my father heart to heart. that left that left a lot of
Yeah, yeah,
that left a lot of wounds, you
yeah.
know, over the years.
I understand, Ross. But I want to also let us look at it from this still happening in modern days, men still not having this direct connection with their boys or their children at, and the impact it has on you. At least it took almost 50 years before you can, like you said, before you were able to have heart-to-heart communication with your dad. This
Yeah.
generation of men, how do you think they could receive help, or what advice do you have for them from your experience to find time or create time in bonding with their boys?
Oh, you know, that is a lesson I am still learning myself because I'm going to have to jump into this, Ola. And that is that my wife and I, because of our life together and because of medical problems, we never had any biological children of our own. But I have now active adopted children all over the world, emotionally adopted. And uh, for me to find time just to communicate with them is very difficult. But it is a decision. It almost has to be like a business decision saying, this much time I am going to dedicate to my work, and this much time I'm going to absolutely dedicate to my family. I need to grow up with my children, help them to understand what it's like to be an adult. Um, I'm dealing with 3 adopted sons in Africa, one in the
Wow.
Gambia, 2 in Rwanda, and they each have needs, and they, because of their life, they don't have parents. Rwandan genocide and other things got in the way. So I am the Baba, the father. And so for me to find the time to pay attention, to listen, to actually listen to what people are saying. Uh, I so number one is block out some very specific time, and don't let anything else get in the way of that. That time with your boy, your girl, your family as it really exists. They depend on you for emotional support much more than any physical support.
Yeah,
So that is so true.
thank you.
So block out
Thank you.
some time. That's number one.
Thank you. So women have to create our time deliberately on their own to ensure that this time is dedicated for my boys, for my girls, or for my children, in order for them to establish such a bond with their children. Recently I was actually listening to a YouTube video, and this guy was saying in the video that when the primary caregivers of children neglect them early in life, they find it difficult to bond when they become an adult. Do you agree with this point of view?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, if people are too busy in our life, the way we all are, we're all called on to be here, do this, talk to this person, go there. It's very easy just to lose track of your real responsibilities. It's difficult for modern men to remember that the major goal in life is your family. The work and the earning money, that's in order to support your family and to give you a
Wow.
chance to benefit them. It's not a
Wow.
distraction.
Wow. Wow. What a word of wisdom there. I hope men will realize this in terms of relating to their families and taking that as priority. For us, let's go back a little to your maybe teenage years. Where and how did you get into trouble when you were growing up?
Are you sure you want to know about this?
Yes, sure, sure. We want to know. We want to know. Because a lot of young boys are getting into troubles and
Listen.
they want to come out of it. So definitely we want to hear from your experience how you definitely got into trouble. What got you into trouble in your youthful teenage?
Well, I'm 76, so my book of experience is very thick. So let me just tell you, because of my father's career choice, uh, we were moved all over the country. Every 18 months, I moved to another location. It was as if my
Every
father was
18
in the
months?
army or something. So sometimes we stayed in one location for 2 cycles, but this was the way Nabisco, my dad's employer, this is how they operated. To give their leadership experience, they transferred them every 18 months. So I went to 5 different elementary schools and 3
Wow.
different high schools. And so my experience was, don't get too close to people as friends, because very soon you're going to have to say goodbye and you'll make a new
Oh.
set of friends.
Oh.
And then you'll be there and then you'll have to say goodbye to them. So it initially was very difficult for me to be open and friendly because I was always the new kid. And years ago, before they understood how to make glasses the way they do now, I had very thick glasses. And so, and I was also very heavy, very, very large. And so I was always the fat new kid with thick glasses. And so I was not exactly the most popular kid on campus, you know. So I learned to live my life very quiet and very internal. And so it wasn't until I was like a senior in high school, in my 3rd high school, that I finally decided, listen, I've had enough of this hiding. I don't care what it's like. I'm just going to step out of this shell and just be me, just who I am. And so, you know, I did become a musician, and I am a conductor, as Ola said. But isn't it interesting how what I chose as a musical thing? And this is interesting because I was always that new little kid, the fat new kid with glasses, and so I didn't want to listen to my critics. I wanted to kind of hide and not get hurt anymore.
Ross,
So as a
let me hold your thought
musician,
there.
but as a hold on, as a musician, I became a conductor, and I'm good at it. I'm just being honest. I am good at what I do. But what does a conductor do? I stand up and I am in control. I'm also in total responsibility, but I'm in control. And so when I walk onto the podium, everyone has to be quiet. They don't ridicule me. They have to listen to me. And an orchestra or a chorus, they can't do anything by themselves unless I instruct them and give them the beat. And when I'm performing, I turn my back on all my critics. They're sitting in the audience, right? And then when it's done, I walk off stage and that's it. So you see, a lot of us choose our professions to help keep the painful material that's still part of our lives concealed.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. I want to hold your thought on that because I'm still coming back to your how you find your path in this uh, profession you find yourself. Was it that you chose this profession or the profession chose you? How did you come about the idea of becoming a conductor or someone who does this symphony orchestra? How did all of this materialize or come to your life, career, and interest?
Well, there's the story I can share with you, and then
Okay.
there's the story that I will also share with you, but it's not one I really understood until many years later.
Okay.
The first story is this. My father, when he was a boy, he had rheumatic fever. And it has to do with the heart and the lungs and things that they didn't really understand in the 1920s when he was growing up. And so the doctor told my grandmother, his mom, make sure this boy plays a wind instrument like a clarinet or a flute or something. So my father chose the flute. Every day of my life, as I was growing up, at 8 o'clock at night, my father would take out his flute and for 1 hour, he would rehearse. He had done this his entire life.
Wow.
So my father was a musician. He was a corporate leader and yes, for Nabisco, but privately at nighttime, music was part of his life. I was able to fall asleep every night of my life until I was 18, listening to my father play music. And if it wasn't him alone, he would have friends come over, and downstairs they would be playing like in a quartet or chamber music or something, and I would hear a group of musicians. So music was always part of my background. Some of you you can notice I have a kind of a deep resonant voice. And so I've always been a singer also, but always afraid to sing because of my being a new little kid, you know, like I told you earlier. But I always knew that music was one way that I could communicate with my dad. Not through words, but through music. And so there was one point where I was home sick with tonsillitis. You know, what was I? I was 11, 12, 13 years old, something like that. And I had a little record player. Some of you remember when we had vinyl discs. Okay. And it was Tchaikovsky's Nutcracker Suite. And the last piece is the Waltz of the Flowers. And I'm standing there in my bathrobe, a little boy with a pen or a pencil in my hand, and I'm just conducting away, you know, I don't know what I'm doing. But suddenly I said, this feels right. I think this is what I want to do. I want to be a musician, but I don't want to be a soloist. let me be a conductor. So that happened when I was, like I say, somewhere between 10 and 13 years old. And then I just moved forward. And the thing that happened at my senior year, I told you, that's when I finally said, enough, I'm just going to be me. I auditioned to be an actor in the school musical, and we were doing the musical Oklahoma, which is a 1940s musical, and it's a big American piece. Well, I got the lead role of Curly, and so suddenly I was the most popular boy in the entire school, and I thought to myself, well, that's strange. I'm the same person. How come everybody else changed? And I realized that this world that we live in is full of masks, and people act according to what feels safe to them, not what they really want to show, but what's safe. And it wasn't safe for them to accept this new kid with the big glasses and all, until that new kid became important, the star of that show. Well, suddenly I was popular. I was being invited to parties, and I thought to myself, this is kind of interesting. I'll use it, but I recognize how thin and superficial this is, but I'll use it. And so yeah, it's important.
That's interesting. That's so interesting, honestly, to think about.
We
for
all have
someone
to
who
choose. We all have to choose how we're going to survive. And we've all made mistakes of judgment of, well, if I only do this, then I'll survive. They will like me if I do this, that, or the other thing. And I learned that from my dad and my mom, because they always said, be good, make people like you. And so, you put on all of these masks. Well, sometimes you have to just take off the mask and see who's underneath. And so here I am.
yeah. I was going to continue to bring this up again in terms of why this was going on with you, a kind of a shy boy who now became so popular in the school, and everyone has to see his popularity based on his gifting. How do you deal with crushes, dating, and love at that stage of your life? Did you have something
That's a great
yeah.
question. Number one, I recognize that I did not answer your earlier question about how did I get into trouble.
Yeah.
My job, what I accepted is my job is to never get into trouble, because I didn't want anybody looking at me, talking to me. I wanted to hide. And so I was the perfect kid. I would smile and hello, how are you? I was very adult for my age. But I was not comfortable with other kids, because they would make fun, or they would, make jokes. And so I thought it was better for me to be more adult and just be by myself. I would be safe if I was by myself. And I recognized that I didn't have a great childhood, because I was hiding most of my childhood life. So I never got into trouble. When I got into trouble, it was because in the family, I would actually make an attempt to say something or speak my mind, and everybody got mad at me. So I learned early on, even in the family, don't say anything, just say what they want to hear. I look at that now and I say, wow, that poor boy, that poor kid. So I had a role model, my dad, who I really could not relate to. I saw how closed he was, and I became closed just like he was. Then there was my older brother. He was always getting into trouble because because he was the first one, my parents didn't know how to raise a child. Well, they never learned how, actually, but that's okay. But my brother was always getting into trouble. And as was typical, we had corporal punishment. That means my father would take off his belt and hit my brother a couple of times just to make him understand. Well, my brother ended up hating that. And I would be in the other room crying my eyes out because my big brother was being harmed by my father and I couldn't do anything about it. I mean, it was terrible for me. Honestly, it was. And so for all sorts of reasons, I learned, do it right, be kind, don't get into trouble, and don't be the center of attention. Wow. All that changed when I was a senior in high school. And I don't care anymore. Now I am who I am, and I'm the guy you know.
Yeah.
So, but how did I deal with crushes and girlfriends and things like that?
Yeah.
When I was a very little boy, maybe 4 or 5 years old, I did have the little girl next door, Jerry Lynn Jones.
And Jerry Lee Jones. Okay.
Oh, Jerry
Lee Jones. Yeah. No, talk to us about Jerry Lee Jones, guys.
Jerry Lynn Jones, she was we were 4 or 5 years old. We went to kindergarten together and first grade. And we would sit outside and we would talk and we would play. But at that age, it's not boy and girl. There's no attraction. It's just friends. Everybody's a buddy, when you're that young.
Yeah.
So that when I became an adolescent and I realized, all the bodily changes that go on and all of that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I was at that point in the middle of my hiding stage. So whatever I felt, I suppressed it. I had to say, no, don't go there. It's going to go bad. Whatever you do, it's going to go bad, I'm sure. So I never stepped out of that shell when I was an early teenager. My second high school was in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I was there from my sophomore year and half of my junior year. During that time, I met a girl, and we became really great friends. And I would say, we kept our clothes on, but we were very close. We really loved each other. And we thought everything is going to be wonderful and whatnot. Of course, my dad got a new position. So in the middle of my junior year, I had to leave.
Wow.
And so I left, and I was beginning to become involved in the choir at school, and I played in the orchestra. And so then all of that had to stop again. So the last half of my junior year, we moved to northern New Jersey, just outside of New York. And those months in my last junior year, I was so depressed and upset. I mean, if ever I felt close to not really suicide, but just making a decision, that's it. I'm not going to experience life. I just don't want this. But something broke through, and again, it was musical. And so that my senior year, as I mentioned earlier, happened as it did. I just had friends. I tried not to have crushes on people. And
what was it like, your dating experience like when your dating experience? You had dates.
My dates. Oh, when I went on dates.
Yeah.
Oh, dating back in those days. And this was a long time ago. This was like 60 years ago. So,
yeah. Yeah.
I was a teenager 60 years ago. Um, you really would go to an ice cream store. You'd go
Okay.
to a pizza shop. And
Okay.
usually you would go with a group of friends. You would try not to go alone. And I was a good little Christian boy. You know, I had a church background and so I right and wrong, and I was all confused about the role of physical connections and sex. And so I tried to avoid anything that could cause me embarrassment. So it wasn't until I was in college that I really had a real bonded relationship with who became my wife. So of 51 years. So once I finally committed to having a proper crush relationship, it turned into a marriage, and it lasted, as I said, for 51 years. I knew my wife for a total of 55 years. But
Wow.
she
Wow.
was
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
she was my third girlfriend. That's it.
Well, uh, I think we've had so much to talk about, and we're really enjoying this conversation. But as it stands, I guess maybe, are you hearing a background noise from my end?
Say what?
Are you hearing any background noise from here?
No, no,
Uh,
no. I'm
okay.
fine. I'm fine.
Uh, I'm sorry about that. Should you hear any sort of sound? I was also going to ask you, Rox, uh, how did you explore uh, not getting into issues that has to do with, uh, what we call cults or courtesan, or how you find brotherhood? I'm telling you, how do you develop brotherhood growing up in the midst of other boys? Today boys seek out for more of brotherhood. They want to be in the midst of other boys to be able to bond together with them. How are you able to solve these, or get other boys into your circle who did not influence you in the wrong direction?
Well, I'm thinking that my my experience with brotherhood, once again, all I wanted as a kid, as a young boy, all I wanted was the love and respect of my own brother. And at 3.5 years difference, it was just long enough so that I was always the little kid. And I never really felt bonded with my actual real brother. So how did I develop that sense of community with other boys,
Yeah,
that okayness with bonding with them? For
yeah,
me, it was not through sports. I mean, sports are very important, I think, for most kids, because there is the ability to talk, and you talk about things that are important to the team, and suddenly you're part of a group, and that's so important to be part of a group for a boy. Uh, and there's also this physical contact. See, this is an important issue that I think a lot of cultures try to avoid. We're all afraid of being looked at as, effeminate, or being gay, or homosexual or something, when in fact it is an actual physical need for boys and men to feel each other's strength, and in a group setting through sports. I mean, you're tussling, and or wrestling or football or whatever it is. You get that sense, I'm not alone. There's somebody else here. boom, I just bumped into somebody. And then when we're happy, there's that brotherly hug. That feels great. It feels great for all of us. And we can't deny that that's part of being a man, is also a physical, respectful, honored physical connection. What's the best feeling a boy can have is when an older man, a mentor, puts his hand on the boy's shoulder and said, good for you. I'm proud of you. And the words are important, but it's that physical touch, that connection where the energy really starts to flow. And that's validation. Where did I get that? I got that through music.
From music.
From music. Because when you're in a chorus, let's say a choir, you are standing shoulder to shoulder with other people, and you are doing something as a team. I mean, being in a choir is almost a team sport. Honestly, it is. There's a director. Well, that's the coach. They're all of us singers. We're the team, and we physically feel each other. There is that physical connection. There is that sense that we are producing something. And none of us could do it by ourselves. So there's that emotional bond of, oh, I'm part of a group. We're doing something together that we couldn't do by ourselves. And this person in front of us, he has our best interests at heart. That's so important. Well, all of that said, I learned what it is to be a man through my mentors. My mentors were conductors, music directors, people who taught me what it's like to be able to be involved with music. And so my sense of bonding with other people were, after you walk off stage, after a good performance, what do you think happens backstage? Everybody's hugging each other.
Yeah.
We're giving each other congratulations. We had a great shared experience. So, mine may not look like everybody else's, but the elements were all there. You need a leader. You need someone to emulate. You need to have a bonding with someone who's on your level, who's also moving in that path. So other boys, other kids. And then somehow you have to say, you know what? I want to refer back to an African word that I learned a couple months ago. There's some tribe in Africa where there's the term umbuto, UMBUTO, as I remember it. And it means I am because we are.
You're right.
Yeah. And so we don't function as individuals. In the West, we are taught to be individuals, and we have to be strong by ourselves. And then we have all of these problems of people who don't know how to be a person. They don't know how to be an adult person. And so most adults are still hiding as children inside because they did not bond with their father. They did not bond with their older siblings. All those things.
So you had the experience of using your music instructors, leaders in your profession. So you kind of see that it's necessary early in life for young boys to find a kind of a job shadowing opportunities where they can find mentors in the area of career or job they want to be involved in when they start their adult life. As it stands, do you still have anything that you felt held you back while you were going?
I think the greatest thing that holds any of us back is our own culture.
Culture.
Our own culture. I have a
Yeah.
phrase that our culture, it can be one of the greatest benefits, but it can also be the greatest limitation. Because in my Western culture, and I come from a line that went back to England and Scotland, and it's very proper. And it's very isolating. And so to that extent, being an individual for me meant being alone. And that was not healthy. So many times the traditions of our fathers, even though they can be helpful, they can be limiting. What did you learn from your parents? What have you learned from your culture that puts the brakes on, that tells you, no, you cannot do that. You should not do that. Doing this is wrong. And doing this is right, even though it doesn't feel correct. You should do that. So at some point in our life, we have to say, I need to be responsible for my own happiness, my own decisions, and I want to do that in community with other people. Who can I do that with? You, Ola, are the perfect example. I hate to turn the tables on you and now me interview you and talk about Ola Okinwe. However, you've decided there is a need in your culture, and there's most people in your culture, they don't even think that boys need mentorship. They don't need advocacy. And in many ways, they don't even need literacy. But Ola Okinwe and his beautiful wife, Omo, decided, nope, that's not working. We're going to make a difference. So you yourself are a great example, and you have given me a lot of insight and
Thank
actually a
you.
lot of
Thank you.
joy,
Thank you.
But
Thank you
here's
so
the
much.
thing. You mentioned a moment ago that how important it is for boys to find a mentor. Well, and that mentor is not there to say, boy, here's what you should do. One of the most important roles of a mentor is giving the boy an opportunity to find out what he's good at. Let
Absolutely.
that boy tell you what he wants to
That's
learn.
true. That's true. That's true. And that is what we're trying to do, as much as we drive the developmental stages of in our boys.
Yes,
Is very important. We serve them in such a way that we provide for them mentorship. We provide for them that bonding opportunity. Because I work with boys here, I've seen a lot. A whole lot of them have been neglected from early age in life, and they seek out this bonding. And when they can't find it at home, what happens is that they just go out there, and whenever they find that, oh, this is very receptive, I am accepted here, whatever it is, it appears or it seems to look like, they embrace it. And in most cases, they don't turn out positive with
of
their
course.
life outcomes. Yeah. So it becomes a barrier. I know we have a lot of conversation to go on with you, but because of our time, because of what is, you may still have to come back for maybe some other continuous conversation on your adventure from boyhood to manhood. But I would like to take you on this, Ross. You know, if you think, oh, I need to finish strong as a man now.
I need to say it
And
again. I need to what?
how do you finish strong
Oh,
as a
oh,
man? How do you want to finish strong? Now you're 76, and opportunities still present itself to you in several ways. How are you planning to finish strong? That's the first question. The second question is, if you had to relive your life from when you were 16 to now? What will change?
Let's start with the first one. How would I finish strong? Well, yeah, I'm maybe 76, and I know I'm in pretty good shape. I full well expect to be here for another 20 or 30 years. God willing, I'll be around for a while.
Yeah, we want to.
That said, where am I in my journey? You think you're getting this high, and then you're really good, and then you realize, guess what? The mountain is way up here. And where am I? Where am I in all of this? Well, I've still got a lot of steps to go. And how do I finish strong? By getting out of my own way.
How do you do that?
By realizing that my brain and how it makes decisions is not always telling me the truth. Before I do anything, I take a breath. I actually take 3 breaths. Deep breaths, and not up like that, but deep down into the diaphragm, okay? And just let myself hold it and let it out 3 times. And then I allow myself to feel what I was thinking. Does it feel right? Does it feel, am I gripping, or does it feel expansive? If it feels expansive, I know that's the right thing to do. Some people call this prayer. Some people would call it meditation. Some people would call it flow from the divine. But it's getting out of my own way. I will only finish strong if I'm not the one trying to create the answers. I'll only finish strong if I allow some of those answers to come in from something we haven't talked about, but that is the reality that there is a guiding, benevolent spirit, if you will, the universe, however you want to talk about it, that if you get out of your own way, if you can quiet yourself, take 3 slow breaths, you can actually sense the right or wrong, or if something's going to be productive or not productive. I never knew this as a kid. So my journey to manhood is actually continuing on. And the man that I want to be is a man that allows for the bigger picture, not the one controlled by my youth, not the one that is hurting as the little boy who still remembers what that's all about. But I now refuse to let it affect my decisions. I want to step out of that history. And that's what music does. That's what arts do. That's what sports does. That's what this connection does. It takes you out of yourself and allows you to be part of a bigger picture. And the bigger picture I'm looking for now is, what about my 3 adopted African sons and the other 3 or 4 that I would like to have as part of my emotional family? How am I going to benefit them? Not by thinking about it, by allowing myself to hear them completely. What are they really saying? What are they really feeling? I don't want to filter it. I want to hear it raw and real from my kids. And then I will give it back to them, raw and real, but with a sense of honor and love and respect. I didn't experience a lot of that when I was a kid. Maybe from my grandparents, but not from my parents, my family. So now it's my responsibility, as I now am connected with several people in Africa. I even own a house in the Gambia. So I am an official African at this point. And I love it. And I love it. But how can I best serve the community which surrounds me? And that community is now worldwide. How
Wow.
do I do that? By getting out of my own way and listening and feeling inside. That's the way I will finish strong, by helping others to begin strong.
And going to the second question before we come to this important question about what you have about 30 years plus experience in, which is the Shen therapy. For most people listening to us might not really understand what's the Shen therapy all about.
Shen therapy,
So,
I will explain it very quickly. And I would say I've had for the last 40 years 2 careers. One was music, but the
yeah.
other is this concept of, how can I say? I have been a massage therapist. People know about Reiki, but that there's an energy field and whatnot. Let me say
Okay.
this. Let me just say this. Who you are when you look at the mirror, that is just simply a container.
Really?
Yeah, what is your spirit? Who is your spirit? Who's living inside? That's my question to you. Who is living inside you? Your spirit doesn't have a color. I mean, culture would say, I'm white, you're black, because we look in a mirror and, okay, that's the reality. If I
Yeah.
took, there's a very famous little thing on YouTube. No, it's on LinkedIn. A Jamaican man that says, what color is your mind? It has no color. If you filled a black can, a white can, a yellow can, a red can, all with water, and you sealed them, what would your eyes tell you? Well, they're all different, except they're
Yeah.
all filled with the same water. So we are a
Yeah.
spirit inside a body. Now, what does that spirit, how can you deal with that spirit? It is, in fact, an organized energy field. We are all an energy field. Modern physics says so. Ancient Tao Chinese philosophy says exactly the same thing as quantum physics, and that is all of us are vibrational fields.
Yeah.
Shen therapy was started by an American scientist in the 1970s who realized that there was such a thing as chakras, as energy centers on our body, and that they are intimately connected with emotions. And when we hold a contraction in our field, our bodies also contract. And so sometimes sadness can turn into heart problems, breathing problems, immunity problems. How is that possible? Shen therapy is that form of therapy that uses the biofield of me, the practitioner, in order to stimulate the field so that old material, all that pain that's inside can finally be completed and released, so that our life is not a series of filters. You know,
Wow.
you know, most of us, our reaction patterns and how we relate to people, it's a whole series of defense mechanisms that have long outlived their usefulness. So if I feel something joyful, I feel it completely. And the emotional episode, it rises and then it completes, and that's wonderful. But if something's painful, as it gets more and more painful, we clinch down and we stop it. And that emotional episode is incomplete. It's like a ripple in water, and the ripple just stays there. It doesn't go
Wow.
away. And
Wow.
and and it
Wow.
waits until the very next time somebody comes along and it they tweak it. They somehow they pluck that string, and suddenly you're 6 years old again, and you're angry or you're embarrassed or you feel judged or something. You're an adult, but that old material is still there. Shen is a process. It's a wonderful process. It's not talk therapy. I mean, I talk a lot, I know, okay. But this actual work is not talk. So it allows me as a practitioner to assist a person's energy fields, to unlock those standing waves, and so that they can complete the painful the painful episode of emotion. And then it's gone. It's history, but it doesn't control us any longer.
Wow.
Does that say anything?
I think before we leave, you may need to give opportunity to maybe one or two want to send in their questions. If you are there, you want to ask questions. I see you. Dad is on it now. I see Johnny. I see 2240Y. Thank you for joining us tonight. We really appreciate you. It's a world will it change if you were 16-year-old. Ola can answer your second question. What will you change if you were 16-year-old? If you have to relive your life, now you are 76. Yeah,
at 16.
That question at one. Yeah.
Okay.
What if you have to relive your life again? You want to live again in your 16. What will you do different? What will change?
When I was 16, that was somewhere in my junior year, sophomore year in high school, right?
Yeah.
And at that point, I was just figuring out that music was the way that I was going to relate to people. What would I change? Well, I was still a minor. I couldn't leave home. I didn't have finances, so I had to stay with home. So what would I change? Honestly, that's a great question, but it's a question of avoidance. What happened, happened. What I would love to have changed was my parents having a sense of okayness with being just open and honest and joyous. They were always contained. They always had their restrictions. I can't change my parents. And I'm old enough to realize that whatever those circumstances are, as difficult and as horrible as they could have been, they were out of my control. And for most kids, it's completely out of their control. And what control they do take is usually negative, because as you said, they find a role model. And that could be child trafficking, it could be drugs, it could be gangs, it could be anything, whatever it is. So what would I change when I was 16? Absolutely nothing.
Okay.
I could say, I wish, but that doesn't change. It wouldn't change anything. And nothing, see, all of us are waiting to live our life. We are waiting until our past changes. We want our past to change, and then I'll become an adult. Well, the clue is it's never going to change. It happened. The only thing that can change is your response. The problem is never the problem. The problem is only your response to the problem.
Wow. People already asking for part 2 of this conversation with you. It's been a great journey. Kenyatta Rose, thank you for joining us all the way from New York.
Thank you.
Johnny, thank you for joining us from Trinidad and Tobago. For us, before you leave, I want to ask this question, which really is a big one for men. You know, sometime between the age of 35 to 48, or basically 50, there's this a big shift that happens to men of that age. Sometimes we refer to this as midlife crisis. Yes. In your journey from boyhood to man, what was the midlife crisis? What shifted this kind of situation that you just find yourself and like, oh, I mean, this is what they call midlife crisis. Then how did you come out of it?
My midlife crisis started when I was 3 years old. Because
how possible is that?
because even as an adult, after I became a musician, and I realized that every time I would step him, suddenly I became Russ Fox. I was not Maestro Fox. I was Russell. I was the little boy again. And so my midlife crisis came when I was 37. And I said, that's it. I am finished with this dichotomy of here's how I am in public and here's how I am in private. And in private, it was always very heavy and awful and drudgery, and you got to do this and you got to do that. And so it's, in all honesty, when I was 37, I found out that I was also allergic to milk, and it was having an effect on my brain. You know, so when I stopped drinking cow's milk, I could think more clearly, and so that was just a chemical thing. But a lot of us are dealing with that kind of a deal where we don't know the whole picture. So we have to be patient. We just forge ahead, and then gradually we figure it out. So my crisis at 37 was me saying, I don't care about this. I'm not going to bring my public life down to my physical reality. I'm going to bring my physical reality up to this, up to my public self, because that's who I am.
Wow.
That's exactly who I am, and I'm not going to make any excuses for being the fat little new kid with thick glasses anymore. I'm not.
Wow. Wow. Oh, thank you, Ross. We really, really appreciate you for coming up to share your adventure from boyhood to manhood with us. See, it's been such a great conversation. I feel blessed to have people like you on this show. And I personally have learned so much about this your journey from boyhood to manhood adventure. And trust me, the audience have received words of inspiration and education from what you have what we have conversated on tonight, and they are already asking for a part 2 of this conversation because they still, I believe there's so much to still learn and get from you. The journey is like a book that you cannot close yet. But as we progress and continue the episode week in, every week, we will still find the opportunity to bring you back in the future to look at other issues that comes up when it comes to how men journey from boyhood to manhood. It feels like never to stop for us.
Well,
But
I think you will find that men across the world, it may come in different packaging, but inside it's all the same.
Yeah, I agree.
We're all dealing with the same problems.
Absolutely. I agree with you. And you know, like you said, most of this problem comes from our culture because the way we are socialized as an individual actually affects the way we perceive others in our society. We will look at that as we come back again to you. And we hope that when we reach out to you, we'll be happy to have you back on this show. So thank you so much. As we bring this episode to a close, remember this, my friends, all of us listening. We're here to live. How do you live every day? That's the question that bothers me the most. But I got to find an answer. And you know, the word live is 4 words. L-I-V-E. The first one from my findings, after so much looking at how I want to live my life, I discover is to love others. The next one is to inspire others. Let your life be inspiring. When you get to an environment, let people feel that you are there. Be the breath that restored life to people wherever you find yourself. In fact, the world is starving right now. Be that inspiration. And the next letter in the word live, L-I-V-E, is V. You are here to create value. Add value to people wherever you go to. In fact, if you are not creating value and adding value to people's lives, you have robbed humanity of your existence. Because that's why you're here. And this is how I want to close this. The last letter in that word is E. Educate others. People's potential needs to be developed. And the wisdom you have acquired from all the challenges you've gone through in life is to help these people get their potential, bring it to the limelight. And I can assure you that you go live every day and you will realize that you experience a delightful adventure. Until next week, Monday, same time when we will meet again with another guest, I want to say thank you for joining us in this maiden episode of Being a Man, the adventure from boyhood to manhood. Ross, as we close this, where can people find you?
People can find me at, I should put it in the chat maybe, shentherapynow.com. And it goes like this, SHENTHERAPY. Okay. That's my email. That's my website. And at the bottom of every page is my email address. There's also a phone number. So if you want to get in contact with me, go to that website right now or whenever. Copy it down, Shen, S-H-E-N, shentherapynow.com. And you'll find all of my contact information and what I do. But it's been a joy, Ola. This has been great. And if there's going to be a part 2, I'm already agreeing to it. Let's do it. Whenever.
Oh, we will do it.
Whenever.
We will do it. We will do it. We will do it. It's amazing conversation. And like I said, do you have a parting word for the audience, for people who are listening to it? You have to leave a word for them to close up this conversation. What will be your parting word?
No more fear.
No more fear.
Don't be afraid. There are people who wish to assist you becoming your best self. Period. Don't fear.
Thank you very much. Do not fear, no more fear. Yes, this episode continues, like I said, every week. Next week, Monday, we'll be having another guest on this show. And as we continue, I want to say I love you, brothers. I love you, all the people that have turned in to this program. If you want to contact me, you can contact me at Ola Akinwe at, I'm going to put my email here now. So whoever wants to reach out to me, Ola Akinwe at gmail.com. You can go to our website and see more of our work, www.bmanadvocacy.org. And if you want to support this program, we are open and receptive to your contribution and support in all of our projects. We will still add the project links on Global Giving. You find us there, Voice Mentoring Advocacy Network. You can contribute to any of our projects. Until we meet again next week, I say go live, my brother. Go love, go inspire, go create value, go educate others. And with that being said, I say goodbye and thank you. Love you. Bye.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.